I think a lot of people have this misconception on what a virtual assistant is. And really, a virtual assistant is just a virtual professional. Take whatever your annual income is and divide it by 2,000. And that'll tell you what your hourly rate is. We were able to help her hire just an administrative assistant, just being able to take that one repetitive, simple task and be able to give it to somebody else. It probably bought her back at least 20 hours a week. There is some stigma to it. And until you experience it, you're like, holy cow. Like,
hello and welcome to this episode of the Real Producers podcast. In each episode, we speak with a Real Producers partner to learn more about them and their business. I'm your host, David Owen with Changescape Web, and today I'm joined by Ryan Goldman, who is with CEO Sidekicks, located in the St. Louis area. Welcome to the podcast, Ryan.
Thank you so much for having me, David.
So as we start our discussion, let's share with the listeners the best way to get a hold of you.
So the best way to get a hold of me would be to go on our website, which is ceo-sidekicks.com. Once they're on the website, there's they can book a call and it goes directly to me. Okay,
great. Well, your name is obviously a little interesting. Why don't you tell us overall about your business?
Yeah, so CEO Sidekicks is a virtual assistant agency. And so what we do is we help business owners, realtors, entrepreneurs leverage virtual assistants from the Philippines. And so my wife is actually Filipino. That's part of how we got started in the business.
Okay.
But yeah, just a way to be able to hire really high quality people for a fraction of the cost.
So how do you find these people?
Yeah, so the way that we do it is basically we would book a discovery call with a potential client. We would find out exactly what their needs are, what they're looking for, what they're looking to kind of outsource. And then we go and we have a team actually in the Philippines who goes and sources that talent. And I think a lot of people have this misconception on what a virtual assistant is. And really, a virtual assistant is just a virtual professional. And so anything that can be done remotely can be done by a virtual assistant. And so we have our team in the Philippines that goes and sources, whatever the client's specifically looking for. It's all tailored to their needs. And that's kind of our process.
So then you are in charge of finding quality people that can actually fulfill the
Yeah, absolutely. And from what we find is we're usually able to hire higher quality people for a much lower price, so whether it's somebody needs administrative assistance, executive assistant, social media manager, video editor, whatever it may be, we're usually able to find outstanding talent. And because the cost of living is so much lower in the Philippines, we're able to do it for a fraction of what it would cost somebody in the US.
Okay. All right. Let's see. So how do you make sure that they're good for the business?
Yeah. So
do you go through I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you go through a process up front where you talk to your potential client to understand their requirements?
Exactly. So like I said, the first step is we go through a discovery call with the client, find out what their needs are. And then when we're looking to source that out, we have a kind of a two-step interview process that the VAs have to go through. They go through an initial interview with our team in the Philippines just to make sure that they have the skill set, the background, the English, the communication, the portfolio, and really the experience that we're looking for. Once they go through their initial interview, they would actually go on to a second interview, which is done with either my wife or one of our executive assistants to really make sure that this is who we feel the most comfortable representing our brand and our company, and is really in alignment with the client's needs.
So how did you get started doing this?
So I got started. So I actually run another company.
I know you got married.
Yeah. So I run another company, a door-to-door sales company that sells community solar and deregulated energy. And we were shut down during COVID. And when we were able to relaunch after COVID, my wife came into business with me, and she saw me like the typical entrepreneur trying to do pretty much everything myself, from scheduling applicants to doing the interviews to the onboarding, the training, the hiring, updating our numbers at the end of the night. And she saw that I was running around like a crazy person. And so she came into the business and helped really systematize the business. But then she was the one that actually went and hired our first virtual assistants. And it totally transformed our business. They basically took over our entire operational side of the business. And I realized, I was like, if a door-to-door sales company can benefit from virtual assistants, probably every business could. Yeah. And so my wife, being from the Philippines, she really wanted to give back to the Philippines in a meaningful way and be able to create opportunity for people that are there. And I just wanted to be able to help other stressed out, overworked, overwhelmed entrepreneurs be able to experience the same freedom that I did.
Yeah, well, I'm sure you weren't alone in that chicken with the head cut off.
That's how we all start out. It's we're our best employees. We can pay ourselves the least, and we'll make sure it gets done.
Well, how does somebody, other than being extraordinarily busy, realize that they need help like this? Because, a lot of people don't want to give up control. That's the way they look at it. Are they really giving up control?
No, I think, what I always encourage people to do is, for most people, they don't even know what their hourly rate is as an entrepreneur or as a business owner. And so the first thing I would encourage people to do is take whatever your annual income is and divide it by 2,000. And that'll tell you what your hourly rate is as a business owner and entrepreneur. And if you find yourself doing things that would fall below that hourly rate, that is something that you should outsource to somebody else. And, so many times as entrepreneurs, we have this feeling like, I want to have control over it. I want to make sure it gets done right. And we really limit ourselves to doing like kind of these, remedial, repetitive, administrative type tasks that could easily be taken over by somebody else. And they may even do it better than us. And we're able to go focus our time on something that really drives our business forward. And that's kind of the shift from working like in the business to being able to work on the business, I would say.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. What's the biggest transformation you've seen with organizations? Is there an industry group or?
So I think where I see the biggest transformation is really for like the solopreneurs and the people that are kind of used to, maybe they haven't really started hiring a team yet. They're kind of just getting started in that. Like they realize they need help. And so like I have one client, her name is Debbie, and she actually runs like a mobile salon service. And basically she was the one doing everything from scheduling all the appointments, doing everything. And she had a really, really successful business. And so we were able to help her hire just an administrative assistant to be able to take over, dealing with the client's inquiries and scheduling appointments. Mm-hmm. And it totally transformed her life. Just being able to take that one simple, really repetitive, simple tasks and be able to give it to somebody else. It probably bought her back at least 20 hours a week of her own time to be able to focus on either her business or her family or something more meaningful.
20 hours. That's huge.
Huge. I mean, it's, we would go to these Tony Robbins events and she would be on her phone all the time. I mean, never stops. And, it's hard you're the bottleneck on your business when everything has to run through you.
Right. That's true. That's a great point. So how do you go through the onboarding process? I'm thinking you have to teach the virtual assistant what you want done. How do you do that?
So there's kind of two parts of this. So as far as like the hiring side, like I said, we do our best to really filter out people, and we're looking for the highest quality person that we can place inside of that client's business. When it comes to kind of that handoff or that transition from, okay, now I'm getting started with this VA, what is the onboarding process? So we have a lot of resources that we give to entrepreneurs on kind of like a step-by-step process. But the biggest thing that you want to have is kind of like a standard operating procedure or an SOP. And for a lot of business owners, they don't have that. So we'll help them create that as well. But really what a SOP is a step-by-step process on how to do any given task, and so we always encourage people when they're coming in and maybe they're training their VA for the first time, maybe they jump on a Zoom or, a Google Meet and record it, right? Record the training that you're going through, and the VA can actually go through and create a SOP out of that process on how to break it down, from step 1 to, step 10, what needs to be done in order to duplicate it and be able to get the same result. And so that's usually what I always encourage people to kind of start with, is, whatever tasks that they're going to be taking over, do you have a documented process for them to be able to follow? And if not, how can we create one as quickly as possible?
Yeah. I think you have to do that. I'm actually reading a book, and the section I'm in now is talking exactly about that.
Yeah.
How you have to have the processes down so you don't have to do everything.
That's it. Yeah. And most people, they don't realize it might take, an hour or maybe a couple hours to document the process, but you do it one time and then you never have to do it again.
Right.
And then once again, you give it to somebody else, who will do it for a fraction of the cost, and you get to go focus on doing something else that's way more high value and gets a bigger return on your time.
Yeah. And I think there's tremendous value in the VA in being involved in that process, because then it becomes theirs process.
Exactly.
And there's some accountability.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the only way to really scale as a business owner. Like you can't scale a company if you're doing everything yourself. It's impossible. You're going to get to a certain point. There's only so many hours in a day. There's only so much you can personally do. And so, the virtual assistant is, in my mind, like one of the greatest resources you could have as a business owner to be able to scale your business while being able to do it affordably.
Now, other than events like these, how have you gotten the word out in the market?
So most of it has actually been through my personal network. I'm a Tony Robbins Platinum Partner. I don't know if you're familiar with Tony Robbins,
Sure.
But
Sure.
so I get to go to pretty much every one of his events, and I realized I'm surrounded by other business owners and entrepreneurs all the time, and so just me kind of talking about my own experience. I always tell people, I was my first case study, we brought VAs into our business and scaled our company using them. And so we're not just this company that all right, we're just going to try to outsource and just to make a dollar. I already have a successful 7-figure business, and we really did this as a way to give back to the Philippines and be able to help other entrepreneurs who are kind of dealing with the same thing. So, but all of it has basically been through my personal network, my social media. We have not, this is actually the first thing we've ever done as far as advertising is Real Producers. Yeah.
Is there an industry you guys have focused on?
So we're not niched down to any one specific industry. I realize that, kind of real estate agents, life insurance agents, those are really most of them start as these solopreneurs, trying to do everything themselves. And eventually they get to a certain point where they realize okay, I need to hire at least an admin, somebody to be able to come in and help me with the administrative side so I can keep selling or dealing with clients. But we have just such a wide range of industries that we help with. I mean, like I said, anything that can be done remotely can be done by a virtual assistant.
Well, it's interesting. You have Debbie. I think that mobile. Mobile was hair care, right?
It's a mobile come to you salon service, and so basically it's for Hollywood clients. So she's in LA, and so it's celebrity clients that they're dealing with. And so it's people that want to have a blowout in their hotel room, or they want to have somebody come to them and give them a massage at the Four Seasons. And so they kind of coordinate it and get somebody to come directly to them. And I was it's been an interesting journey of seeing so many different businesses and how they've been able to be transformed.
To me, that's a notable one.
Yeah, it definitely sticks out.
since we're talking real producers, how in your mind would you get involved with real estate?
Yeah. So for real estate specifically, same kind of thing, administrative assistance. Social media is another huge one that, everybody knows they need to market on social media. They need to promote on social media, but like, who wants to go in and spend the time to have to go and create content every single day?
Yeah.
Even with the side of like transaction coordinating, I mean, we can find people that have real estate backgrounds and have already have experience with that, bookkeeping. So there's so many different kind of pieces to it, depending on what they're spending the most of their time with that they would like to leverage out.
Do you think there is a stigma around hiring offshore help?
For sure. Yeah, I think there is, just until you've experienced it, and so when you think of it, you think, okay, like maybe they don't speak good English, or, we think of the people that we call, that call us from India, and like, we can't understand them, and we don't want to have that experience. And I think, most people don't realize, with the Philippines specifically, they have very soft accents. They're taught English from the time they're in elementary school. They're highly intelligent, so there is some stigma to it. And until you experience it, you're like, holy cow, like this isn't, I can tell you, I was the biggest skeptic in the beginning. I was like, how can a virtual assistant help me in my door-to-door business? And it started off with just doing data entry. I was like, man, I hate doing this, updating our KPIs, and like, I'll give that away. And then I was like, all right, maybe I'll let them do my social media. And then they did our social media, and I was like, okay, can they schedule appointments for us? And they started scheduling our interviews. Then they took over our onboarding. I mean, and so there's so much that they can do. But until you experience it, you just don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. So if somebody's interested, we talked about how they get a hold of you. Is there kind of a try it, see if you like it?
So we've kind of toyed with it. It could be kind of like if somebody gives us a referral, then maybe we could give them kind of a sample of the service. We don't have anything necessarily set in stone. Like, here, we'll give you a week to try it. However, we are open to it. And so because I do know that it'll change people's lives. I mean,
well, to be really effective, you have to invest some time up front.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that they're committed to it.
Yeah.
There's some learning either way.
Yeah, there is 100%. And learning, kind of how you operate, what you deal with, learning the systems, the procedures, all of that. It would be hard to kind of just have everything nailed down in a week.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So
But everything is really flexible. We don't lock people into like year-long contracts or anything. Everything's month to month. We want people to stay with us because we over-deliver, not because they're stuck in a contract with us. Yeah. We make it very flexible for people. Like, hey, try it out for a month, and if you're unhappy after a month, no problem.
Well, shoot, a month would, that's pretty significant piece of time that you can understand what the value is.
Yeah, you'll know right away. And like I said, it's a game changer.
Well, what else should partners know about this business?
Yeah, I would say, just to kind of reiterate, people's misconception about what a virtual assistant is really anything that can be done remotely can be done by a virtual assistant or a virtual professional. And so if there are things that you recognize are kind of repeatable, repetitive tasks that you're doing on a consistent basis over and over again, that you probably could use a VA to take that over and buy back some of your time. And really that's our kind of our slogan, right? Is to help business owners buy back their time. And that way it's, maybe it's not to go do anything else other than spend time with your family. Maybe it's to do something that you truly love, but we get so caught up in this kind of day-to-day operation mindset. And really you got to shift from being a business operator to a business owner. Right. And that only happens through being able to leverage other people. And so if you have any of those tasks that are repetitive that you're doing all the time, those are great things, whether it's appointment setting, appointment scheduling, responding to emails, calendar, social media. I mean, all those things are great tasks to leverage out to a VA.
Right. And I think you made a great point, and that is people operate in their business, not on their business.
Yeah, absolutely.
They spend too much time. They keep themselves busy thinking they're being successful, but they're not doing anything.
Yeah. There's a difference between, being busy and being productive,
That's right.
and same thing, doing administrative type tasks, responding to emails, posting on social media, like those tasks are not the greatest use of your time. You're doing something, whether it's spending time with your family or, doing something that's actually generating you revenue.
Right. Well, listen, is there anything else that you want to share?
I think that about covers it. I would love the opportunity to jump on a call with anyone just to be able to kind of go through their business and maybe pinpoint some things that they may benefit from. Another service that we do offer that I didn't talk about is we do CRM build outs for clients. So if anybody needs a CRM, a client relationship manager, we help with that as well. So that's another big thing.
Do you do any specific platform?
Yeah, we use Go High Level. So we use Go High Level and white label it. And so, we have an agency account. And so that's the hard thing. It's a phenomenal tool, but if you don't know what you're doing with it, it can be pretty overwhelming.
Well, yeah, it will swamp you.
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
Use High Level as well, and you can get stuck in the mud.
Yeah, very easily.
Know what you're doing.
Very easily. So so we handle all that for our clients as well.
Well, again, your website is
CEO-sidekicks.com. And then they can also follow me on Facebook or Instagram, Ryan Goldman. Instagram is Ryan J. Goldman, and then CEO Sidekicks as well on Facebook and Instagram.
All right, great.
All right.
Well, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
All right. I appreciate it, David.